My name is Greg Turchetta. I am a resident of Red Lion, Pennsylvania. Been a resident of York County since 1987. Worked in the automotive industry for 15 years. Currently work in the business document management industry, and have worked for a period of about 2 years at Best Automotive Incorporated, owned by one Russell Wantz, formerly the All-Star dealerships, and after some wrangling with the state attorney general on some consumer complaints, the corporations were changed to Best.
And Mr. Wantz also owns the Shad Detective Agency.
Yes, he owned the Shad Detective Agency.
And
he still does.
He's a state security contractor.
As far as I'm aware, yes, he is.
So you were telling me your dad actually worked for Best first, and that's how you came on board?
Correct. Best had gone through some fairly tough times, from a sales standpoint. My father, who was a veteran in the industry, was hired to come in and basically and plan and execute a turnaround. From there, he had a need for a sales manager in Hanover, at which point the job was offered to me.
So you were hired on as sales manager? Or?
Yes, sales manager.
I understand Mr. Wantz has a lot of business. The Shad Detective Agency holds repossessed cars for the Drug Task Force and whatnot.
Yeah, there is a very distinct and deep relationship as I worked and came into contact and was asked to perform various duties. We had a lot of cars that were on dealer tags that were still under the ownership of the dealerships, that were deployed and used by various people in the district attorney's office, detectives, very, very well connected throughout the York County, York City government. And the reason I became aware of this was, as part of my function as a sales manager, it's my obligation to control and track the inventory that the bank owns, and they would come in once a month for what would be called a floor plan check, and we would have to account for these vehicles. If they were sold, then they were required by law to be paid for in a certain time frame. If they weren't sold, then we needed to identify a location, and a lot of those cars. And when I say a lot, I say anywhere on a given month between 15 and 30 cars, depending on what month it was, were either at the courthouse or being driven by police officers, assistant district attorneys, various people. So then I would have to track these cars down, contact Mr. Wantz, and get an answer from him in order to provide an answer to the bank.
So these, and this is right when you started. You said in October '99.
Yeah, this was a common.
But this was ongoing when you began.
Absolutely, sure. Generally, I was dispatched through Mr. Wantz.
So you would get a call from Mr. Wantz saying, prepare a car for...
Correct.
And who would he say, for example...
Well, there were, at one point, District Attorney Rebert's wife, I believe, needed a car. He had a car, had already had a car when I started there. That was one that was on the Perpetual loan program.
Who? Let me say, you say he already had a car. Who already had
Mr. Rebert had a car that was owned by... by Best Automotive, that it was for his personal use.
So let's, for the viewers that don't know, who. So Mr. Rebert is who?
He's the district attorney of York County.
Do you remember what sort of car he had? I mean, is that...
There were generally the cars that we were loaning at that given point in time were Chevrolet Malibus. They were cars that were bought at General Motors auctions. As far as make and model, all Chevrolet, with the majority of them being Chevrolet Malibus.
Well, was Mr. Rebert using this car for his personal use for the district attorney's? I mean, explain.
It was it wasn't for official business as far as I knew. It was just a driver.
And you say Mr. Rebert's wife was also given a...
I was informed that his wife had access to a vehicle as well.
So I think you read the transcripts of Chief Downing, Becky Downing.
I did, yes.
Who worked for Stan Rebert. And one of her complaints was that Mrs. Rebert was using a a cell phone that was paid for by the Drug Task Force.
Yeah, I did read that. And, those phones, again, at that time, Nextel two-way technology was fairly new, and that was the mode of communication that was used frequently between Russ Wantz, Mr. Rebert, and folks, throughout the county. And again, a lot of the communication that would happen via these Nextel phones.
So this is, and when did you leave Mr. Wantz's employment?
Would have been January or February of 2002.
So was Mr. Rebert, did he have a car courtesy of Mr. Wantz this entire time?
Oh, yes.
District Attorney Stanley Rebert and his wife were driving these complimentary cars from Russell Wantz.
Yeah, they had access to the keys. They had access to the car. So I would extrapolate from there that they were driving the car.
And just to finish up that part of it, so in other words, you would get a phone call from your Nextel or your business phone, and what would happen about these complimentary cars? You'd get a call from Wantz?
I'd be told to prepare, a certain vehicle for a certain time and have it delivered to the DA's office or have it delivered to Shad where they would pick it up.
Who would tell you that?
Russ Wantz would tell me that.
So you would get a phone call?
Yeah, he would be the only one that could authorize something like that.
So the phone would ring, and what would happen?
I'd pick up the phone, and it would be Russ on the phone. He'd say, "Hey, Greg, I need you to get that O2, Malibu that we just got from play, get it cleaned up, put a tag on it, fill it up with gas, and have one of the lot guys run it into Shad. So-and-so is going to pick it up, or take it down to the courthouse and drop the keys off for whoever."
But you're saying this was a complementary part of the business.
These were not sales. These were loaners, if you will. They were owned vehicles that were given for use and then returned.
Well, it must be, so they run up miles on the odometer doing that. So in other words, then the bank calls you. We were saying it's like the movie Fargo. They want to know where these automobiles are. Right.
Well, yeah. There's you have an obligation as any dealer does with a bank that runs floor plan. Floor plan is basically a line of credit that pays for the cars that are on the ground. A loan. Every month, the dealership pays interest on that money. And within 5 business days, the agreement is that when a transaction occurs and a car is sold, that dealer has 5 days to deliver the money to the bank to pay off that car. So they come in once a month as a routine audit. It happens, industry-wide, where they will come in, they'll check VINs against their records, physically touch each car to make sure it's on hand, and the ones that aren't, they need to know where they're at.
Well, this seems sort of strange then, because so what did you tell them about these? You said there could be 30 cars.
We would tell them that they're on what we would refer to, the jargon was a D tag. D tag meaning dealer tag.
But that's quite a few cars.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And then, they would have more questions I couldn't answer, and I'd refer them to Mr. Wantz. And, what those conversations were, I couldn't tell you.
So, in other words, the banks actually own these cars.
Yeah, the banks own the majority of the cars that are on a new car dealer's lot until they're sold.
Well, and what I'm saying is think it through with me, because I'm a bank and I own a Malibu with I don't know, I think it has 5,000 miles on it,
Correct.
Which has a blue book value on it.
Right.
But that car is not really on the lot. The DA or his wife is driving it around and running up the mileage.
Right. Yeah, it affects the value of the car, absolutely.
So do you think it might be that the bank wasn't giving the true story about the value of these cars and what they were being used for? Did you tell them these were just temporary loans, or did you say the DA has this?
Yeah, I would tell them where they're at. I had no reason to lie.
And did you ever mention the district attorney had one of these cars?
Yeah.
And did that cause them to maybe back off a little?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My job was done once I identified the location of the vehicle.
Do you know what I'm saying, Greg?
Yeah.
If the bank comes and says, well, we're missing 5 cars here that I own,
right.
And you say, well, my pal Bill has one and he's driving it to Mexico.
That's not going to fly. No, but because of the relationship with the owner and the general, and whoever was driving the car, they continued to do it,
Because you think it was because the district attorney, the police, and members of the courthouse staff were driving.
Sure, it seems legitimate, right? They're government officials.